whoever put that together had gone to the extent of saying exactly where she would be at what time, so she could be killed.
The plan was flawless until a routine traffic stop turned into a hitman's confession. Imagine a wealthy socialite discovering her life was saved because a hitman left a paper trail in his car. These are just glimpses of when murder for hire goes wildly wrong. How do seemingly perfect plans unravel so catastrophically? Case 1. The small-time crook turned hitman.
They both came in, sat down, and said, "Do you know of anyone that would want to hurt you?" And I said, "What do you mean, hurt me?" And they said, "Would you know of anyone that would want to kill you?"
Aaron Wilkinson wasn't your typical hardened criminal. He started off as a small-time crook, dabbling in petty thefts and minor scams. But desperation and the lure of quick money pushed him into a dark and dangerous territory: murder for hire. Little did he know, his inexperience and loose lips would turn his hitman debut into a spectacular failure. Nancy Leem was the epitome of Southern charm and sophistication. Thriving in the well-heeled circles of Charleston, South Carolina, she was married to Chris Leem, a top bank executive with a high six-figure salary. Life seemed perfect for Nancy, but behind the facade of luxury and social events lay a crumbling family dynamic. By the time their daughters, Emily and Madison, were in their teens, the family had drifted apart. Chris's involvement in their lives dwindled, leaving Nancy and her daughters to function as an independent unit. One day, everything changed. Nancy's daughter, Madison, answered the door to find the police. The officers delivered a chilling question: "Do you know of anyone who would want to kill you?" This shocking inquiry set the stage for a harrowing revelation. Aaron Wilkinson's downfall began with an ordinary traffic stop. Pulled over for a minor violation, Wilkinson probably thought he'd get away with a ticket. But when the officer started to write him up, Wilkinson's nerves got the best of him. In a desperate attempt to avoid trouble, he blurted out a story about a murder plot. He claimed to have been hired to kill a woman and had paperwork to prove it. The officer, sensing something far more sinister than a simple traffic violation, decided to search Wilkinson's car. Inside, he found a gun and a detailed hit packet outlining a plan to kill Nancy Leem.
He said he had paperwork that showed what he was planning to do.
So then, who is this supposed target?
I think it's Latha.
That's right, Nancy Latham.
The contents of the hit packet were chilling. Whoever hired Wilkinson had gone to great lengths to plan Nancy's murder meticulously. The packet included detailed maps, schedules, and specific instructions on where and when to kill her. It was clear that this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. It was a cold, calculated plot to end Nancy's life. Wilkinson, under interrogation, revealed more horrifying details. He admitted that he had come down from Kentucky on the orders of another individual to kill Nancy. The paperwork included everything from her daily routine to a map of her home, ensuring the hit would be as efficient as possible.
We had a victim that we didn't know her whereabouts, that we needed to make sure we could find and secure so that she was safe.
Wilkinson's loose lips during the traffic stop were just the beginning of his downfall. Once in custody, he spilled even more information. He told the police that he wasn't working alone and that his partner in crime, Sammy Yanan, had provided him with the detailed hit packet. Wilkinson also mentioned that he was supposed to check in with Yanan soon or risk raising suspicion. The feds set up an undercover call between Wilkinson and Yanan, capturing a chilling conversation where Yanan gave the green light to kill anyone who got in the way, including Nancy's daughter if necessary. The plot was horrifyingly detailed, right down to how Wilkinson would be paid more if he made Nancy's death look like an accident. Case 2. The failed California horse show producer.
A lot of times, in these murder for hire cases, this is a textbook murder for hire case. Don't see a lot of variance from a normal one of these.
Tatiana Natasha Remley was once a name synonymous with high society and extravagant horse shows in California. Known for her involvement in producing multi-million-dollar equestrian events, Tatiana's life took a dark and twisted turn when she plotted to have her estranged husband, Mark Remley, murdered. What led this fallen show producer to such desperate measures? The answer lies in a volatile mix of financial ruin, a tumultuous marriage, and a desire for revenge. Mark Remley, Tatiana's target, was not just her husband, but also her former business partner. Together, they had attempted to create a grand equestrian show called Valitar, which aimed to blend acrobatics with horse performances. The venture, however, was a spectacular failure. The show collapsed under the weight of its financial mismanagement and the couple's crumbling relationship. Performers and vendors were left unpaid, and the Remleys' marriage began to unravel publicly and painfully.
In these cases, they have to be pretty sealed tight to get a good conviction, and that's why having someone on audio or video is key.
By the time Tatiana and Mark's marriage had reached its breaking point, Tatiana was living under extreme financial strain. Their once lavish lifestyle was no longer sustainable, and Tatiana was struggling to maintain her monthly expenses. The divorce proceedings only added fuel to the fire, with allegations of abuse and financial misdeeds flying back and forth. Tatiana claimed Mark had been verbally, physically, and sexually abusive, accusations he vehemently denied. As their legal battles raged on, Tatiana became increasingly desperate. In a shocking twist, Tatiana decided that the only way to solve her problems was to eliminate her husband permanently. She offered a mutual friend $2 million to carry out the hit.
$2 million apparently isn't much for this family or for this defendant to get her hands on.
Unbeknownst to her, this friend tipped off Mark, who then alerted the authorities. In a carefully orchestrated sting operation, Tatiana was lured to a Starbucks in Solana Beach, California. There, she believed she was meeting the hitman to finalize the details of the murder. Instead, she walked into a trap set by law enforcement. The sting operation was meticulous. Officers recorded Tatiana as she laid out her plans and handed over money. The evidence against her was damning. She was arrested on the spot, charged with solicitation of murder, and taken into custody. During her arrest, she reportedly claimed ignorance about the planned hit, but the recordings told a different story. Tatiana's motives were clear. She was driven by financial desperation and a bitter vendetta against her estranged husband. Tatiana's arrest sent shockwaves through the community. Not only was she charged with plotting her husband's murder, but details of her past came to light, painting a picture of a woman driven to extreme measures by her dire circumstances. Just days after offering the money to have Mark killed, Tatiana allegedly set fire to their shared Rancho Santa Fe home. She claimed to have no knowledge of how the fire started, and no charges were filed in connection to the blaze. Case 3. The church organist's deadly deception.
Lisa came in her nightgown and she said, are you going to work all night or are you going to come to bed? So, being a married guy, I knew what that meant. So I said, I don't think I'm working anymore tonight.
Michael Frazier, a seemingly meek and mild-mannered church organist, harbored a deadly secret beneath his quiet exterior. Known to his congregation as a dedicated musician and a reserved man, Frazier's life took a dark turn when he became entangled in an illicit affair with Lisa Wedby, the wife of Rob Wedby. What began as a secretive romance soon escalated into a sinister plot to eliminate Rob and claim Lisa for himself.
I couldn't really ever understand why that smell was in the house because nobody in the house smoked. It's one of those things where I couldn't really tell you whether I was asleep or half awake.
Rob Wedby, a family man living in the peaceful suburbs of Knoxville, Tennessee, had no idea that his wife's lover was plotting his murder. Frazier's plan was to stage a home invasion, making it appear as though Rob was the victim of a random act of violence. On a seemingly ordinary night, as Rob and Lisa prepared for bed, the wheels of Frazier's plot were set in motion. Frazier entered the Wedby home under the cover of darkness, armed with a kitchen knife and dressed in a black Phantom of the Opera t-shirt. His entry was facilitated by Lisa, who unlocked the door and allowed him to slip inside unnoticed. Frazier hid in a closet, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. As Rob drifted off to sleep, the smell of cigarette smoke, Frazier's telltale habit, began to permeate the room. Rob, half asleep and disoriented, dismissed it as a dream and fell back asleep.
In here with a knife, he's trying to kill me. At that point, she just came a little closer to the bed and sort of raised the bat up a little bit more. And I'm thinking, oh man, got it made.
Moments later, Rob was jolted awake by the presence of an intruder standing over him. Frazier, wielding the knife, launched a frenzied attack. Rob, reacting on instinct, managed to fend off several blows before rolling off the bed and onto the floor, taking Frazier with him. The commotion awakened Lisa, who initially appeared in the doorway with a baseball bat. Instead of aiding her husband, Lisa hesitated, further implicating herself in the plot. In a desperate struggle, Rob wrestled the bat from Lisa and chased Frazier out of the bedroom and into the garage. Barefoot and clad only in his underwear, Rob managed to lock Frazier in the garage. Frazier, realizing the tables had turned, retreated back into the house. Rob, unable to break down the garage door, fled to a neighbor's house, banging on the gutters to raise the alarm. The neighbor, Bill Shin, quickly called the police, who arrived to find Lisa feigning ignorance about the night's events. The ensuing investigation revealed the depth of Lisa and Frazier's conspiracy. Under intense questioning, Lisa confessed to her affair with Frazier but denied any involvement in the murder plot. Meanwhile, Frazier was apprehended and subjected to rigorous interrogation. In a tearful courtroom testimony, he claimed that his love for Lisa had driven him to the brink of insanity. He recounted how he had planned to kill Rob but lost his nerve upon seeing the man asleep, leading to a clumsy and desperate attack. The courtroom drama reached its peak with Frazier's emotional breakdown on the witness stand. His defense attorney painted a picture of a man so consumed by love that he'd been driven to irrational actions. Despite the clear premeditation and intent to kill, the jury found Frazier guilty of the lesser charge of attempted voluntary manslaughter, not premeditated murder. The verdict left many in shock, as Frazier received a lenient sentence of only 4 years in prison. Lisa, who had facilitated the plot and held the bat during the attack, received an even lighter sentence of 1 year in county jail under an Alford plea, a legal maneuver that allowed her to maintain her innocence while acknowledging that the prosecution had enough evidence to convict her. Case 4. The Scheming Veterinarian. Valerie McDaniel seemed to have it all: a successful veterinary practice, a luxurious lifestyle, and a seemingly bright future. However, beneath this veneer of success lay a brewing storm of personal turmoil and desperation. Valerie's marriage to Mac McDaniel had crumbled, and despite her attempts to maintain a semblance of normalcy, the strain of her divorce and financial woes pushed her toward a deadly plan. Her once enviable life had taken a dark turn, one that would ultimately end in tragedy and scandal. Mac McDaniel, Valerie's ex-husband, had been a constant thorn in her side following their tumultuous split. The animosity between them grew as they fought over custody of their adopted daughter and financial settlements. Valerie, unwilling to share custody or lose the lifestyle she'd become accustomed to, began to entertain a sinister solution to her problems. Enter Leon Jacob, a charming but troubled doctor with his own set of legal issues, including charges of stalking and domestic abuse. Leon and Valerie quickly became entangled in a relationship that would prove to be both toxic and deadly. Desperation led Valerie and Leon to concoct a plan to eliminate the obstacles in their lives, namely Mac and Leon's ex-girlfriend, Megan Varicus, who was pressing charges against him. Valerie and Leon decided to hire a hitman to take care of their respective problems, believing that once their exes were out of the picture, they could live their lives free from the burdens that weighed them down. They turned to a man named Taz, who they believed was a professional killer. However, Taz had no intention of carrying out their deadly plan. Instead, he saw an opportunity to prevent a murder and earn some money by working with the police. Taz, whose real name was never disclosed, played along with Valerie and Leon's scheme while secretly informing law enforcement of their plans. The police quickly set up an elaborate undercover operation, bringing in an undercover cop named Javier to pose as the actual hitman. In a carefully orchestrated sting operation, Javier met with Valerie and Leon at an Olive Garden restaurant to discuss the details of the murders. Valerie and Leon laid out their gruesome plans, with Valerie explicitly stating her desire to have Mac killed in what would appear to be a carjacking gone wrong. The chilling conversations were recorded, providing irrefutable evidence of their intent to commit murder. Javier presented Valerie and Leon with staged photos of Mac and Megan, made to look like they'd been brutally attacked and killed. Believing the hit had been successfully carried out, Valerie and Leon were arrested in the early hours of the morning. The police arrived at Valerie's apartment, informing her that Mac had been found dead. Her initial reaction was cold and devoid of emotion, a stark contrast to the caring veterinarian her friends and colleagues knew. As the reality of her situation set in, Valerie's world began to unravel. The public exposure of her plot and the subsequent legal proceedings took a heavy toll on her mental state. Facing the prospect of spending the rest of her life in prison, Valerie took her own life by jumping from her 7th-floor apartment balcony. Her tragic end was a stark contrast to the life she once led, leaving behind a community in shock and disbelief. Leon Jacob, on the other hand, faced the full weight of the law. Despite his attempts to shift blame onto Valerie, the recorded conversations and damning evidence left little room for doubt. He was convicted on multiple charges, including solicitation of capital murder, and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole until 2047. Leon's fate was sealed, and he would spend the remainder of his life reflecting on the choices that led to his downfall. Case 5. The Grandmother's Revenge. Sandra Treadway, a 56-year-old grandmother, was the epitome of Southern hospitality on the surface, but beneath that exterior lurked a grudge that would lead to her ultimate downfall. Sandra's life took a dark turn when she discovered her grandson had been almost starved to death by his mother, Lindsay. This revelation ignited a fury within Sandra, transforming her from a loving grandmother into a vengeful orchestrator of a murder-for-hire plot. Her desire to protect her grandson and see justice served drove her to make a decision that would shatter her world. The target of Sandra's wrath was Lindsay, the mother of her grandson. Sandra believed Lindsay was unfit to care for her child and was determined to remove her from their lives permanently. In her desperation, Sandra turned to a family friend, hoping he could help her find a solution. This friend, however, had different plans. Instead of assisting Sandra, he contacted the authorities, setting the stage for a sting operation that would ultimately lead to her capture. The sting operation unfolded with meticulous precision. The authorities set up a meeting between Sandra and an undercover officer posing as a hitman. The meeting took place in a nondescript location where Sandra laid out her plan in chilling detail. She wanted Lindsay dead, believing it was the only way to ensure her grandson's safety. The undercover officer recorded their conversation, capturing Sandra's explicit instructions and payment arrangements for the hit. As the evidence against her mounted, Sandra remained unaware that her every word and action was being documented. She believed she had taken the necessary steps to protect her family, never suspecting that her friend had betrayed her. The setup was complete and Sandra was arrested, her plan foiled before it could come to fruition. In the courtroom, Sandra's trial became a spectacle that captivated the public. Her defense team argued that she had been entrapped, claiming she was coerced into hiring a hitman under duress. They painted a picture of a devoted grandmother driven to desperation by her love for her grandson. However, the prosecution presented the damning evidence: the recorded conversations, the payments, and the meticulous planning that left no doubt about Sandra's intentions. Sandra's courtroom appearance was in stark contrast to her previous life. Gone was the composed, hospitable grandmother. In her place stood a woman facing the consequences of her actions. She pleaded with the jury, her voice trembling as she explained her motivations. But the evidence was overwhelming, and the jury deliberated for less than an hour before delivering their verdict. The judge handed down a harsh sentence: 60 years in prison for solicitation to commit murder. As the reality of her situation set in, Sandra broke down in tears. Her earlier composure shattered. She was led away in handcuffs, her pleas for leniency echoing in the courtroom. The sentence was a life sentence for the 56-year-old grandmother, effectively ensuring she would spend the rest of her days behind bars. Case 6. The Businessman's Mistaken Identity. James Wingert was a successful businessman, known for his sharp mind and even sharper business acumen. However, his life took a horrifying turn when he found himself entangled in a deadly case of mistaken identity, orchestrated by a ruthless loan shark named Cole Allen. Allen, notorious for his predatory lending practices, had a sinister side business, hiring hitmen to eliminate those who couldn't repay their debts. Wingert became an unintended target in this deadly scheme, narrowly escaping death due to a bizarre mix-up. Cole Allen had a reputation for brutality and cunning, and his primary enforcer was a man named Paul Aileen. Aileen was instructed to eliminate a debtor named Leonard Mundy, who'd fallen behind on his payments. However, Aileen's sloppy execution of the hit led to a catastrophic mistake. Instead of targeting Mundy, Aileen ambushed James Wingert in a parking garage, shooting him in the face. Miraculously, Wingert survived the attack, his life spared by sheer luck and quick thinking. He played dead after being shot, which likely saved him from a second, fatal shot. The investigation into Wingert's attempted murder was a convoluted puzzle for detectives. Initial leads were scarce, and the lack of clear evidence made the case challenging. But Wingert's survival and his adaptability to provide a description of his assailant gave the detectives a crucial starting point. The breakthrough came when Wingert identified Aileen from a lineup, leading to Aileen's arrest. Aileen's interrogation revealed a damning slip-up. He inadvertently mentioned a previous botched hit, which caught the attention of the investigators. This led them to dig deeper into Cole Allen's operations, uncovering a web of deceit and murder-for-hire plots. The courtroom drama that ensued was intense, with prosecutors painting a vivid picture of the chaos